Hello, welcome to another great episode of the Contractor Business Builder podcast. We have the honor of having Coralee Beatty today. She's a business consultant and coach for the construction industry. How are you doing today, Coralee?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Right on. Looking to diving into a bunch of interesting topics and some of the work you've done, previously, and also some new stuff that you've got coming out, which is exciting. Can you just share a bit of your background, how you got interested in construction and trades, and then the inspiration behind founding Thrive HQ?
Sure. It is a little bit of a long story, so I'm going to give you the Coles Notes version. I loved construction my whole life for no particular reason. I wandered onto construction sites and fell in love. No family members were really part of the industry, so it wasn't a continuous exposure that I had. And when I was, teenager, I used to love drawing floor plans and designing houses and looking through magazines. Like, it's just something that I really always loved. And then when I graduated high school, it was like, of course, I'm going to go into psychology and criminology. Like, when I look back on it, the disconnect is just so very interesting. So I went into psychology and criminology for almost my full degree. I quit in my fourth year when I realized that really wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And that's when I was like, well, why don't I check out construction? And so that was the point at which I checked out our local technical school, and I got enrolled. They had short enrollment that year. They had space, which they usually didn't. And it was just the first week of class. So I kind of quit university. I quit my full-time job that I also had, and I jumped right into school full-time. And I haven't looked back. And that was almost 30 years ago.
Very interesting story, considering, you didn't necessarily have any family members or close connections with the industry. And I remember, we talked earlier, and you talked about as a kid, there was some construction going on nearby, and you were just really interested and intrigued by, construction sites and, buildings and stuff like that. So very interesting to see that, you sort of went the formal education route and then, landed on actually, a very rewarding career in the construction industry. Can you give us a little bit of insight about Thrive HQ and how you sort of got started with the work there?
Sure. So when I finished school, I started as a building envelope consultant, and I did that for 10 years. And in that time, I met my husband, who happened to be a plumber by trade. And we started a plumbing business together. So there's a couple of years that overlap between being employed full-time and then actually starting and quitting my full-time job to be full-time with my husband in our business. And we had our contracting. We did plumbing, heating, HVAC. Like, we did the whole mechanical services for 15 years. We sold that just over 7 years ago. So after selling it, it was a journey of, what am I going to do next? Like, I just had no idea what I was going to do next. And there were a couple of really dark years where I was so uncertain. Like, I'm somebody who really thrives on goals and like routine and structure and working towards something and growing something. Like, it was just, that's who I am. And I didn't have that because I didn't know where I was directing myself. It was really hard. So there were some really dark years where I just didn't know what I was going to do. And it was kind of like one morning I was laying in bed in this quiet space, and it was like this light bulb moment that went off, and I was like, oh, I should be a coach. Like, I should help other women that were going through a similar thing that I was. And during that time, I was looking for a life coach really to help me through my hard time. And so when I saw sort of the potential there, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So the journey to where I am today, although very all over the place, I kind of went through life coaching for business women. And then I was missing the business piece because I love business. And I was like, well, maybe I'll do business coaching. And I got certified. So it wasn't just like, hey, I'll do this thing and I'll do that. And I took my experience from all of the years that I had, and I eventually landed on business coaching for women specifically, because that's who I was, and I could identify with these people wholeheartedly. And business women in construction. And that's where I started. And as I was growing and evolving, the things that I was doing, what I realized is that the construction industry is one that I love. I love this industry, and there's so much potential for rewarding careers. And at the same time, I recognize there is a huge gap that we need to bridge as far as the quality of employers, quality of life for our people, and the quality of life that this industry can serve for people. And I think that there's so much potential there that needs to be addressed, because, I really really want to feel comfortable and confident sending my kids into this industry. And when I dropped my son off for his first day on the job, he was an HVAC tech, and I dropped him off at his new employers. And he was 17 at the time. My chest felt tight and my eyes were all welling up. And it wasn't because my little boy was growing up. It was just because I just was so uncertain. It's just like this, we aren't safe enough yet. So that was when I told him, I said, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like if it feels unsafe, don't do it. It's okay to say no. Like all of these things, I was like drilling into his head because I know what people are asked to do out there still. And that was my biggest concern. So as far as, I think that's part of my motivation is just making it the industry one there where my kids can feel good and safe and I can feel good to send them out there. So that's kind of part of the motivation to, helping the industry on a whole just improve working conditions by, helping people with the mental health crisis that we have. There's so many pieces to this that its solution doesn't have to be challenging, I think or at least part of the solution doesn't have to be as hard as it feels sometimes. And that's the information that I want to share with business owners. It's just like, there's some little things that we can do to make your business better, to have your employees have a better quality of life, and to improve the performance of your business. It's just a few things.
Yeah. Very unique trajectory and perspective, and quite interesting how you made these transitions. And a very interesting thing, which I'm not going to dive into too much, but the kind of like life after a business, whether you're selling it or moving on to do something else, you can have those gaps, which are sometimes scary because as a business owner, you're very driven and goal oriented, and there's always more than enough stuff to do. It can be overwhelming for sure. And then going to having more, being able to be more quiet or reflective, or not having like a regimented schedule or things like that can definitely be challenging, and something maybe to think about if you're moving into a situation like that, if you're going to be retiring in a few years or switching, between these life moments and stuff like that.
Yeah, even with my current clients, it's something that I help bring them to awareness of, because like you said, regardless of how you're going to exit your business, you will exit it at some point. And if you tie your identity too much to what you're building, when it's gone, you lose your identity with it. And that's kind of what happened with me, even being aware of what could happen. That's what happened. Yeah. And it was, there were definitely some hard, dark days for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And very inspiring with your trajectory as well, helping women business owners in construction and, consulting with construction businesses, which kind of leads to a newer initiative for you as far as, really helping the entire industry with what you mentioned before of mental health and creating safer work environments. So can you speak a bit about the new program that you've developed and some of the benefits that you'll have for a construction business?
Right. So the gap as such that I saw where I could help and fill in because of the experience that I had and because of, the people that I've met and all of the years that I've had in this industry, where I recognized we needed more help was in developing our workforce and developing them on their soft skills. They are great skilled tradespeople. They know their craft and they're very good at it. And managing stress, managing pressure, managing the schedules and the budgets and all of the things that come with delivering a successful construction project is not part of an apprenticeship, is not part of the training. Like really gaining the skills to be able to manage that emotional stress, pressure is not anywhere to be found. It's that people are thrown out there and to figure it out on their own. And I've experienced more than enough time what that looks like when there is no guidance or support and people are freaking out, they're snapping, they're throwing stuff, they're yelling. That is the nature of the product of not being able to handle stress properly or productively. So what I did was I developed a course for the workforce, which is for anybody from ground up, anywhere. It is intentional towards leadership. So developing people in their leadership skills. And where that starts is leading themselves, self-mastery, like being able to emotionally regulate, to be able to understand resilience and confidence and who you are and how you affect people. It's these things that a lot of people, like not just in the construction industry, I'm going to say most of our population is not in touch with this part of themselves. So I developed this program, which I've started delivering just this year. It's in January. I'm delivering it for a company, and it is company specific. So it's not like I take a bunch of people into it. I deliver it for a company to their people, whoever they choose to participate. And it's very interesting because what I'm learning is that part of the course is learning how to reflect on your experiences, reflect on who you are, what you do, how you respond, and those types of things. And it is each component, each week, we have like this little bit of a reflection type of homework. And it's hard for them. It's hard for them to know how to do that, which I think is amazing because it is a 12-week program. So we have lots of time to be able to go through and practice this. And I think that that is one of the key skills to be able to develop, to recognize that you can do things differently. So if you do fall back and you do fail as far as how you might otherwise want to respond in a situation, it gives you the skill to be able to look back and think, okay, well, this is what I did. This is what I want to do differently. And this is what I'll do next time, or, what triggered it and why did you respond that way? It just gives them different things to think about that they haven't thought about before. And it makes them more mindful of things going on around them on site. It's been really interesting, actually, now that I've actually had the opportunity to work with some people in it.
Yeah. It's exciting and very, very cool that you're offering this, because I think it's a big deficiency in the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And the construction typically moves at a slower pace as far as change goes. And it's, it is a bit of a rough and gruff environment to begin with, and then not overly, first adoption as far as like new methods or technologies or training and stuff like that. So very much needed. I think for contractors, you often hear can't find good guys, like, guys leave or quit and all these kind of things. And it's like, yeah, that might be a little bit of the industry, but ultimately, what are you going to do about it? How can you manage that or facilitate it? Maybe, the environment is inducive of, people not lasting very long or having a bad experience, things like that. And I think that your program is really speaking to this type of, issues within the industry. Plus, I think just being aware as well, like you mentioned, people having to actually have some reflection or some thought into how they're acting or how they're feeling or whatever, some of those softer skills, super important, as well as like leadership, communication, trust, I think is huge, building that team. So can you speak to maybe some methods that you use through the program, or the different parts of the program that help with some of these, longer term benefits of building a team?
Yeah, one of the things I actually wanted to mention about the program is it has been approved by our provincial government as a course that qualifies for the employer training grant. And the reason I mention that is because there are a lot of programs out there. This one's specifically for the construction industry. And notwithstanding, if you're just looking for an emotional intelligence improvement type of program, there's tons out there. And there's some that are really good and some that aren't. And how do you decide? So one of the reasons I did build this the way I did is because it is vetted at a level where it shows that it's making a difference. It's intended to make a difference. This is for the employer training grant, is really for putting people in a position, take training to put them in a position to advance in their position. And that's one of the things I think is one of the biggest issues we have, is that it's very difficult to advance people effectively within our organization. Instead of taking, a really good tradesperson that doesn't have the leadership skill set, you have to go find somebody else, or you put that person in their role and it can mess up. That was the experience that I had, was that we put a really great tradesperson into a leadership role and it was catastrophic. It was a horrible outcome. And so that was a huge lesson for me, and, part of what I, contributed to me doing this. So in the program itself, it is broken into 12 weeks. And we start with, just understanding, the first segment of it is understanding discipline, because this first module of this program is self-mastery. It's mastering yourself, being able to lead yourself first. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. And I think regardless if you're striving to be a leader of others or not, to be able to lead yourself is of huge value to the rest of your life and the growth that you go through with the rest of your life. So we do focus on discipline. We focus on resilience and confidence and habits and gratitude, like things that, a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at. And at the same time, when you start to understand how all of these pieces fit together to build a confident person who has the discipline to do the things that they don't want to do when they don't want to do them, like that is a hard thing to do. And when you start to recognize that delayed gratification, putting off some of those things, and you're learning the tools and skills, some strategies for actually being able to do it. You can see that they are gaining confidence. You can see that they are being able to do things differently or recognize things differently. Simple things, like one of the people in this is that he hates always turning his, I think it was our first session, maybe it was our second one, I can't remember. We were talking, it must have been the second one. He like hits his snooze button as many times as he possibly can, and then he like runs into chaos. He's like, I run around all the time, and because he can just easily hit snooze. And I said, well, if you don't want to be doing that, what about setting your alarm for the time you want to actually have to get up and put it across your room? So just move your clock across the room. Like just little things that you can give them. It's just like he never thought about that before. It is a little thing. And at the same time, it just makes you do something that you don't want to be doing. And it's only, supporting your future self, that thing that you want to be doing later. So it's little things that help them to understand they can be doing things differently, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hard right away. So, so we go through those things, and it is every week they have homework where they are reflecting on questions of whatever the component is. Like, is it resilience? And they think about a time when they had an interaction or when they showed resilience, and they just reflect on it. And same with some habits. What habits do they want to form? And then they have like a habit tracker. So there's a workbook that goes with this whole thing where, we work through it together. I think it's 190 pages or something of, work that they do. It includes, tracking gratitude, which I think is something is really undervalued. Like if you can wake up every day and think of 10 things that you're grateful for, it just puts you in a better mind for hitting, the construction site, really.
Yeah.
And it's not, let me tell you, it's like, they're not doing it every day. And that's what I tell them. I said, the intention is to work towards this. It's not something I expect you to be 100% out of the gate. It's just like, it's changing the way you operate. It's changing what you're used to. And that's what we need to be doing in order to have the effect that we need on the industry at a business level, at a personal level, at all levels. It's just operating differently. And this is one of the tools that we use to get there.
Yeah, definitely very useful. And as you mentioned earlier, it is an exercise as far as, like gratitude or doing some of these, providing homework, new ways of thinking. The challenge, and sometimes people get or frustrated, I guess, if they don't see results, or it's like it's not working or whatever. But really, that challenge or friction, or the part that's not working, that's what strengthens you and develops those habits. So very interesting there.
That's where we bring in, that's where we bring in the resilience piece, understanding that it's not always going to go well, and what tools can you put in place so that you are more resilient and you build your resilience so you keep going at it. When you fail, I use that in quotes, then you start again. You keep going. You're not so hard on yourself. Like, it's just little things.
So let's say I've got a construction company, whatever size, number of employees. I know mental health is important, but I've never really talked about it with my people, or don't really know much about it myself. What are some tips, or how would someone get started in maybe breaching the subject of mental health for their workforce, or some resources? Where could they get started?
So ultimately, we're human. Whether we're in construction or anywhere else, we are human. And humans want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be valued. That's it. Yeah. And those are some really simple things that you can do, like just see your people, like see them. How's your day? How is your week? Just talk to your people like they're people. These are things that, because we hear a lot about, not like the status of toilets on our sites, for example, or, just not having a place to eat your lunch. Like those in themselves are huge issues. And it doesn't have to be fixing all of the things at once. It's just connect with your people at a human level. If you're going on site and, maybe you're a project manager and you're going onto a site and you're not usually on site or whatever, just be human and connect with the people that are there. Because once you break the ice to show that you care, so whether you are a middle level manager or you're a business owner, at wherever you are in we'll call it a ladder, just show that you care about the people around you and the work that they're doing and what they're contributing. And don't, pay attention only when they mess up, because that's usually what happens in our industry, is that we see all of the mistakes and we bring a lot of attention when that happens. What about the opposite? What about just bringing them attention because they did something that looked really good or something that was great? Like I remember, I being in the mechanical industry, when I would go into a mechanical room that was beautifully laid out and plumbed and, piped and all that stuff, that is a piece of art. Like I will comment on that every single day. Like, just, it's beautiful. They just do those little things. Like, you just recognize the quality of their work or the effort they're putting in, something that shows that you actually appreciate them. Like that in itself goes a long way for people just to feel like, oh, maybe I matter around here. Because I tell you, people don't leave their work, they leave their bosses. If they have, somebody who just doesn't appreciate them, shows them nothing except for a hard time, that's when people are going to leave. That's the reason.
Definitely. That's fantastic advice. Definitely you want to be expressing appreciation, gratitude for a job well done. And it also reinforces for your employees the things that you do appreciate. I really like how you cleaned up the other day. I really like how you communicate with that client. I really like that you actually showed up today early, even though you've been late the last few days. Like it kind of reinforces that the good behavior, and they're more likely.
Okay, just a second. Just a second. I'm going to go back to what you just said, because I think there definitely is a place for correction and not a backhanded comment. So don't say, great to see you show up early, even though you were late the last 3 days. And I know that you're kind of joking. That was kind of a side. But I do want to say that there's a way of delivering that message that appreciates the person, that says, wow, I really appreciate you being on time today. I don't think they'll know that they haven't been on time, or whatever. There's always a way to frame the like criticism, if you want to call it that, or the correction. There's always a way to frame it so that you're appreciating them first, then delivering the message that they need to hear, and then wrap it up with appreciation. Just sandwich the message that you need to deliver with some sort of acknowledgement. And I don't care how many people roll their eyes, because I was this person. I'm like, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this? Can't they just do their job? I pay them. Like, I get it. And if you want to keep your people, if you want them to be engaged, if you want them to be productive, you need to get over yourself and what you think they should need and actually give them what they need. And once you can start doing that and get over yourself, because I had to get over myself. And what I found when I did that, like when I was like, okay, take me out of the equation, what I would want or think they should want, and just gave them what they wanted and what they needed. What I recognized is that I had a better connection with my people, not because they were more open with me. I put the guard down and I was more willing to connect with them. And it was a really powerful experience, or recognition that I had of my own experience of not being that Gen X that thinks that kids just need to get to work and stuck it up and all of the things. Like, it's just, it's not where we are anymore.
Yeah. I think myself included sometimes is like, we have this ideal picture of like, we hire someone, they should be trained and skilled and they should do their job and they shouldn't have to, they should kind of figure things out and whatever. But ultimately they're starting somewhere, they're new to your company, they may have experience, but probably not the experience you might expect of them. So to get from where they are to where you want them, it involves training and time in the company. What would you like? Is there anything specific that you would say for an onboarding of a new employee? Let's say we've got someone new coming into the company, kind of set the stage of how we want to operate, or bringing up, some, things about mental health or communication with the team, leadership. What can be done kind of in that early onboarding stage to get everybody sort of to the same level, at least at the outset?
I don't know if you can see in the background here, I have a little book. It's my book. It's called Hiring Secrets for Trades and Construction. And it's all about finding, hiring, and retaining top talent in your industry. And part of it is like, in there, I have a sample onboarding schedule. And onboarding is not like a one-day event. It is not a first half hour of the first day event. It is like a 3-month process. Through their onboarding happens throughout their probation. Like, that is, they go hand in hand. And if your hire is not successful at the end of their probation, that's on you as the person who hired them. Not only, like, there's obviously something that fell somewhere, whether it be in the hiring process or in the onboarding, wherever it happened to be, that's on you, and you need to figure it out so you can fix it the next time. Notwithstanding that, the onboarding, I think, is a key piece. And the onboarding starts before you actually bring them on for their first day. So for example, if you send them an offer letter, they accept it and they're going to start in 2 weeks' time. Onboarding starts with sending them pertinent, relevant information about the company ahead of time. So it means, having them understand explicitly what the values are, what the mission is, what the vision is of your company. Those are things that you'll share during the hiring process. And when they accept and come on, you're sharing those things again. You're kind of reinforcing. We said it then, and we're reinforcing it now. So it is giving them information. Maybe it's seeing videos, like, of any kind of, if there's time tracking software that or I guess it's not software, apps, whatever, Shows my age. If there's some sort of apps that they need on their phone, you can give them all that information ahead of time so that when they show up on day one, they're prepared, because day one is kind of like the introductory kind of day, administration kind of day, doing all the paperwork, those kinds of things. And as part of that, yes, absolutely, you're setting the stage for what you value. And that includes safety. And whether that's a core value that you operate by or just something that you share with them as the way the company operates, those are things that need to be shared right up front, very explicitly and very clearly. And what I share with my clients that I work with is we have like this document. It's like it's made in Canva, and it's like a slideshow, and it just lays out the culture, the apps people use, it lays out everything to have to do with the company. And you can get that as soon as they say yes. Send them that stuff and start them learning. They come on and they go through that stuff again. You show them how to use the apps, whatever. It's the onboarding really is something that is key to their success. And you meet with them regularly. You go over any challenges. You make it a safe space right from the beginning. Now, the challenge is when you shift to doing things the right way from having done things like the chaotic, barbaric kind of way, there is this period of time. And I completely recognize and acknowledge, because I went through it, and it's a challenge. It is a challenge to shift from, the challenge of the way you do things isn't so much the issue as it is the people that you've already had. So now you're kind of doing training for the people that you've had for, longer than you've had this new process. And that kind of becomes the more challenging piece, is implementing and getting your existing employees on board with doing things differently, talking differently, communicating differently, trusting differently. You said trust earlier being a key to this, and it is. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have when we start doing things differently is that people who never trusted us before, they're not going to just oh, okay, you're kind of cool now and things are going a little bit better, so I'm going to trust you now. It is a process. And I think that you lose people in that process and you gain stronger relationships in that process. So there's a lot of ups and downs that go through making changes in your business, and acknowledging in the long run, it's going to make you a more sustainable business, one that's going to be more profitable and more productive. There's a lot there. Sorry. There's so much to it.
Wonderful. No, you shared a lot of great information there. And if you as a company don't have some sort of onboarding process with some sort of documentation, this is your wake-up call. Go get it in place. It makes your life and your employees' life so much easier. First of all, you don't have to explain stuff to every employee. You're not going to be forgetting things, because every employee is going to have a different experience coming into the company. So that's very cool. I like what you mentioned about having a Canva, slide deck, what have you. I'm used to having, a document with some checklists and information, or employee handbook, things like that. But having more of a slide deck, I think it's more accessible, it's more graphical, might land better with new people coming into the company. So yeah, very, very cool. As far as let's say fast forward 5 years, 10 years in the future, everyone's worth their salt's gone through your program and, is operating at an amazing level. What changes would you like to see in the industry over the next 5 to 10 years with some of the work you're doing, but overall, just in general, what would be a change in the right direction that you can see?
Of course, I want to see more business owners and leaders acknowledging, valuing, and prioritizing their people. To me, this is a people industry. And when we recognize that and start treating it like that, then it will look completely different. Notwithstanding the people part and the contribution that I'm making to help develop, stronger, more resilient people. I would love to see one thing that's very tactical is where we have physical first aid kits. I've seen one that is like a mental health first aid kit. I would love to see that as just a standard thing that we see in the site offices, just like we see the first aid kit, we see a mental health first aid kit. I think that would be amazing just to be like a default thing that we see there. That's kind of just a small thing, thinking that if we got to that point, we'd be really moving in the right direction. We'd be in the right direction. And overall for the construction industry, I think that I hear a lot from people is that, I need to figure out what I'm going to do because construction is breaking down my body. If we could figure out a way to integrate AI, robotics, to do the work that's breaking down our people's bodies and take our people and put them in positions where we need to use brains more so than just their bodies to actually optimize our people to what they'd be really great at instead of just breaking down bodies. Or even there is innovation out there that shows support for the human body in these types of things. I would love to see a movement in the direction where we are also supporting the physical health, in that it's not breaking down our bodies, it's not so hard, and people can actually have a longer career here, because I think people just end up leaving because it's too hard on their body. And right now it kind of is in a lot of different trades.
For sure. So I'm going to jump into the the body thing because that's interesting as far as, robotics and these assistive technologies and things like that. As far as the mental health first aid kit, what would be inside that, or how does that look? What components would have?
Yeah, so I think that what I have seen of what exists, 'cause it hasn't been adapted for a construction site. And so for ones that I've seen are things that are like comfort type of things. So in other words, like there's a journal in there. Somebody can go in and journal their thoughts. And maybe that's, little booklets that individuals can take, or maybe it's like just an open book where you can go and see, people don't have to write their name in it. They can just see that other people are also and just express, the challenge that you're having. One, it helps you to get it out. Two, you can see that other people are also experiencing hard time. So I think that is a big part of it, because I think just journaling in general, being able to get the experience out of your body and onto paper is really healing. Now, other things that I've seen in there that aren't really appropriate for the construction industry are things like, things that bring down calmness, for example, like it might be a candle. Now, obviously, we're not going to have a candle on a construction site. I haven't thought so deep into what that is going to look like, but ultimately it is to provide tools where people can de-escalate any kind of emotional elevation, like just bring them down, something that can help them calm down. Maybe it's like a breathing app or something that is available for them to just bring their because when you pay attention to your breath, that calms you down. Like that's one of the things that calms you down almost immediately. So when you turn to your breath, but it's being mindful to actually do that. So it's things like that. I don't know of all the pieces that could be in there. I haven't thought deep enough in it, but I think it's a way of, acknowledging the challenge that we can have and one way we can help it. I'll have to come up with a better answer. I'll have to actually think on that.
No, that's good. I think like a lot of the preliminary work, if you put it kind of in the onboarding process and education and awareness is a big part of just getting the subject more familiar. I think with the workforce is a big first step, and then having like go-to resources if they are, mental health is deteriorating or is more of an emergency type thing, that they've got a resource, whether it's a physical mental health kit or just some sort of resource that they know they have links to, or someone to call or talk to, or what have you, to reach out and get some help for sure. And the assistive technologies, that's going to be huge. And I know a lot of contractors who, they're getting into their 40s, 50s, 60s. And you sometimes see these guys late in their years, long in the tooth, that are still kind of managing, but their bodies are just kind of worn out, and they're more just sort of getting the easier jobs. I think that the whole training thing will help with this as well, where you can have kind of a younger workforce that is better well trained, not just the guy moving materials, but doing more of the work, and then have sort of the older guys doing more of a knowledge-based kind of work, like you mentioned. And it'll be really interesting to see where this robotics and everything goes into the future. Some very cool videos out there, a little scary, some of them, that of what they can do, but it will be very beneficial. In construction industry will be a big, benefit from that. For people that want to learn more about your program, connect with you, what's the best way for them to learn more and reach out?
They can check out my website. That's thrivehq.ca. All my programs are laid out there. They can also email me or connect with me on any of the platforms. I'm Coralee Beatty. I'm one of one, so I'm very easy to find. So they can connect with me there too.
Wonderful. So we'll put some links in the description of this, video, audio, wherever you're checking it out, so you can get connected there. Click through the links, go check it out. Program so much needed, so unique, and very beneficial. People, business at the end of the day, it's the people inside the business and how they operate and function. So give them some help, give them a platform to utilize like your program, so that they can be more effective, and at the end of the day, just have a better time at work and enjoy what they do. Any final words of wisdom or final thoughts or topics that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think that one of the things that I talk often about, that I'm just going to wrap up with, is that I often say mindset is everything. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I think that was Henry Ford that said that. And if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. It is in your head. So that's something that I think more people need to understand, is that you're more in control of your outcomes than you may think.
Yes, you're not a victim of your circumstances, but mentality definitely produces the outcome and the results. So wise words. Thanks so much, Coralee, for coming on here, sharing all your wonderful knowledge. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Derek.